Oh, I can tell you now with grace, covered in grace, joyful stories and things like that, but I can tell you there's been many a tear. There's been many a question. Don't be afraid to ask your questions to the Lord. He never rejects you because of your questions. In fact, he says to seek, and guess what? You'll find. Ask, and then knock. And I went through all of those years. I had no idea that it would bring me to stand before you. I had no idea that it would take our story around the world. I just knew that in life I felt stuck. There's nothing worse than fighting to have your children and then you can't see the faces of them. There's nothing that hurts more than to have a little grandson who was stinking adorable, and I can't lock my eyes with his. The other day he said, Nona, he said, here's my hand. He said, let's go together. A 3-year-old. Oh, that the body of Christ could have said, hey, here's my hand, let's go together. Believing, don't give up, Gail. And when I came to the end of myself, I can't tell you how and when it happened, except that verse that I said yesterday. Every tear I've ever cried, he kept in his bottle. But when I called on the name of the Lord, the tide was turned and all my enemies began to flee. For this one thing I know, you are for me. That's all I knew. I knew he was for me. I knew he was for me. I had no idea that there were different levels of darkness. I had no idea that treasures could be found in the dark. I had no idea that when it looked like I was weak, he would be strong. Oh yeah, that was a great verse until it happened to me. In our weakness, he's made strong. Who really likes that verse? And here I was, that's where I was walking. And then I reached a season where I had the family and God had been good in spite of all of it. I was learning my way. I had made decisions. No matter what, I will trust you. I will trust you. I was learning how to exchange my plans for his plans. And in the middle of it all, please hear me clearly. I'm not saying anything except that no matter where you are, whether you understand it or not, he's there for you. Even in the deepest pain, he's there. Even in the places where you feel stuck, he's made a way of escape. Even in the places where it hurts too bad, he is the healer. He is the balm of Gilead. And I came to a point where I threw myself into his arms, the God of comfort and hope. And then I began to think, wait a minute, hope. Hope sees. And then I began to see people around me missing things, and I'm like, they're blind. And then my perspective started changing. I had a fight within me. Yes, his word is true, not based on my life, based on who he is, the great I am. I no longer walked in shame, but I said, you know what? I've even got joy in the journey. And you know what I still can't get to this day? If I can't see and I have incredible joy, what's wrong with you? You see, where's your joy? So it must be based on something more than what we're just looking at. It's based on life itself, Jesus Christ. And in the middle of all of that, I remember that I had a day where I had to make a decision about some eye surgery. I didn't want to do it because both of my eyes would be patched, and then I would be right where I never wanted to be, total darkness. And so the night before I had surgery, I asked my family, as strange as it might sound to you right now, I asked them to line up. I asked all the kids to line up in birth order, a cross in front of me. And then I asked my husband to line up before them. And I went to him and I took his face and I imprinted his face in my heart. I looked at those eyes, those covenant eyes. When I first had lost my eyesight, my husband said, we will not retreat. I looked at a man who had given himself. I looked at a man who had loved me. And then I went to Anna. I saw her face, her beautiful face, her servant's eyes, her willingness to help me raise the family. I went to Lindy, her beauty, her graciousness, and the way that she had made us laugh over the years. I went to Holly. I examined her face. I saw the strength of her life, knowing she'd been called to be a leader. imprinting all of it. God, don't ever let me forget these expressions. Then I bent down to Lydia. She was 4. Connor was 2 at the time. And I looked into Lydia's face. I already knew that she was a leader, but I had no idea what she would look like as a young woman. But I knew that God would use her. I tried to picture her as an adult being used mightily of the Lord, knowing that each child was born on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. And then I looked over at our little guy, Connor, the only one that would carry on our family name. A man of God, someday to be a father, someday to be a husband, someday to be a leader. He called to be it, imprinting it in my heart. And then I left. That one surgery ended up being a year long of different surgeries. And at the end of the year, I went back to Chicago, Illinois. I sat in the surgeon's office only for him to come over and try to console me like only a physician cannot do. And he said to me, it didn't work. The surgery had actually catapulted me into more blindness. And with tears streaming down my cheeks, he said to me, I'm sorry, there's no hope. And in the middle of all those tears, I looked at him and I said, I leave your office in hope. Hope never disappoints. Hope always sees through the storms. Hope is Jesus himself. And when you come to a realization of that, you move from the guy up on the video we just watched who's stuck to the woman who lifts her hands and say, here I am. Be it unto me according to your word. In the middle of my life, may you be magnified. Ladies and gentlemen, there was a day, there was a moment in history when someone we loved dearly had imprinted something in his heart too. There he hung on the cross, being crucified. Old, rusty sword through his side, nails in his hands and his feet. There were thorns on his brow to the point of blood. His back had been massacred. He had nothing except for what Hebrews says, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. They had pulled out the beard of his, they had pulled out the hairs of his beard. They had spat on him. They had mocked him. There he was stripped of everything, hanging on the cross. And it says, who for the joy set before him? What vision was that? It was you. It was you, Abby. It was you, Priscilla. It was you, David. It was you, Aaron. He saw you. He saw all of you. It was you, Eva. It was you, Michael. It was you, Tony. His joy, his vision imprinted in his heart was you. He believes in you. And from this point, you rise up to either continue to complain, I'm stuck, it hurts, or to lift your hands and say, here I am. Be it unto me according to your word. And in the course of that freedom, you will begin to live.